Hey guys, Ron here, and let's continue this tier list series with a couple more, well, tier lists. We did Gen 8 Pokemon and starters, and I'll save the legendaries and other gens for their own individual videos, but today I have 4 different categories for you guys, because you constantly comment on my videos asking for my opinion on Pseudo Legendaries, Eeveelutions, Gigantamax Forms, and more, so that's the point of this video. Now, I know I'm not a harsh critic. I simply try to find enjoyment from every Pokemon, because why not? They're made to entertain. It's lighthearted fun, and I'm not gonna lie and say that I hate things that I don't, so don't expect F-tier Pokemon. I'm here to give my genuine thoughts, not to overthink the merit of fictional creatures. None of this is based on battle prowess, you guys know that, and let's go. We'll do the Eeveelutions first, and I like them all. I don't think it's controversial to say that. They're great Pokemon, and since I'm generally ranking them compared to the entire roster of Pokemon, no Eeveelution is below B. The only B rank Eeveelution, in my opinion, is Flareon. It's cute and beautiful, but all the other Eeveelutions look good, so it's my least favorite since it's the one that deviates from Eevee's design the least, and it's very subpar fire type to actually use. Other Eeveelutions are fun to use. B+ tier time. These are basically average in terms of Eeveelutions, but great relative to other Pokemon. Glaceon's cool, but I have no attachment to it whatsoever. It's the only one that doesn't look too natural to me. Its hat-like bangs look forced, but other than that, its color scheme is beautiful. I like its personality more than the other two in this tier at least. Espeon is the most solid Eeveelution. I have no complaints, but it's also relatively boring. Its design is exactly what it should be, but it's still not as exciting as all the other ones above it. Leafeon used to be my least favorite Eeveelution. But over the years, I gained a true appreciation for its natural-looking design. Its body seamlessly incorporates the leaves into its body, and the colors are so comfy. Maybe in a few years, it'll be a tier above, but it's relatively boring in terms of personality. A tier is for the Pokemon that are above average by a fair amount. These are Pokemon I'd consider some of the best in terms of Pokemon, while the S tier above it is just my personal favorite Eeveelutions. Umbreon is here because its design is the most enticing of the Eeveelutions. Not only is it dark, but also represents the moon with its rings. I love designs that are both beautiful and intimidating, like Umbreon. Jolteon was my favorite as a kid. It's definitely the most appealing from a simple design aspect. That means it's just spiky, and that's cool. But it also has a feisty personality and has just the right amount of differences and divergences from Eevee, while still looking like a different species. Sylveon is my favorite fairy type. It's as pretty as a Pokemon can be. It's the embodiment of its type, and I love that. Its color scheme is delicious looking, and its eyes are alluring. It looks pure, and that's what I want from a fairy type. And my favorite Eeveelution is Vaporeon. I think its design is incredible, flawlessly turning a mammal into this semi-aquatic being. It works so well, and it's so emotive. I'm biased though, because you can watch my video on the top right above about how I became a Pokemon fan, and Vaporeon is the first Pokemon I ever saw. Now it's Pseudo Legendary Pokemon time. Now these are Pokemon that are as strong as a lot of legendary Pokemon and were designed to be as appealing and coveted. You're supposed to want them on your team, so once again, don't blame me for not putting any Pseudo Legendary Pokemon below B tier, because they're all at the top of this franchise. Goodra's a B tier. B means great. It's above average for Pokemon, but it's definitely the Pseudo Legendary I desire the least. It's a flawless Pokemon. It's definitely the most adorable, but that's not what I personally want in a Pseudo Legendary. Same thing with Dragonite. It's a B+ because I liked having one on my team, especially considering how rare it is and how hard it is to train it up. But other Pseudo Legendaries are at the top of their type, right? Dragonite isn't. Literally every single Dragon type is great in my opinion, but Dragonite is pretty average. Maybe slightly above average when it comes to Dragon type designs. It's lovable though, and B+ is nothing to complain about. A- tier has Como-O. It's very interesting and is one of the most inspired Pseudo Legendary Pokemon with cool origins and a unique design aspects, I'd say. It's the most controversial design here since I can see why some may not like it. That's why it's an A-. I just so happen to be one of the ones who like it. Skipping A tier since there is a pretty noticeable divide in how much I love the next 3 Pokemon compared to the previous Pokemon. They're not my personal favorites, but I believe that they're flawless and appealing. Hydreigon is marvelous. It's scary, but pretty. Nothing in its design is shared by any other Pokemon, at least. Its concept and execution is hardcore, a truly fantastical creature that it seems like it's straight out of a fairy tale. Same thing with Tyranitar. It's the Pokemon I associate with destruction and power. We're getting to the point where only Pokemon Masters can tame these Pokemon. Tyranitar is the pocket monster. This is the embodiment of Pokemon battling to me. Now, Salamence is a personal Pokemon. It was the first Pseudo Legendary Pokemon I ever trained, and I cherish it a lot. I personally like how it looks so feral and ferocious, yet has such bright, saturated colors, almost to warn of its danger, you know, like real-life animals do. It has an engaging evolution concept, and it's crazy how both Hoenn Pseudo Legends are A+ and above. S+ are the Pokemon who are among my favorite of all time. Not just within this category, by the way. Dragapult is not only the most unique Pokemon on this list so far, it's one of the most unique Pokemon in existence. Its concept, design, typing, battle prowess, prehistoric and stealth bomber origins, coming together with its execution and even color scheme is perfect. It's both super adorable, what with the babies on its head, but very intimidating. I'm afraid of ghosts and holes and weird looking planes, and when a Pokemon who represents my fears is appealing to me, it's top tier. Garchomp isn't my favorite Pokemon, just the one I think is the best. All the things that are awesome about it are evident. I can think of no flaw. I mean, look at this thing. It's a walking dragon shark that can fly and dig. It's an all-terrain threat. The number one Pokemon you don't want to be real. The ultimate killing machine. In my opinion, the only Pokemon that ultimately betrays Pokemon's philosophy of adding at least one cute or endearing aspect to the design of a conventionally scary creature, because everything about this is awesomely horrifying. But my absolute favorite pseudo-legendary Pokemon, and one of my top 20 favorite Pokemon of all time, is Metagross. Game Freak threw away all the conventions that they established with the previous pseudo-legendaries, and the following ones too. They said screw it, let's just make one that isn't Dragonoid because it's already epic. Metagross is the Pokemon that could take over the world if it wanted to, with its intelligence and strength, but it doesn't because it's on the side of good. That's inspiring. Its design is sick, and its color scheme was always my favorite since childhood. A perfect example of a Pokemon I would love to befriend in real life. Knowing that a supercomputer is my companion is very relieving. Alright, regional variant time. Alolan and Galarian forms are some of my favorite additions to Pokemon, and I hope the trend continues in every generation because that really helps make Pokemon feel more immersive and makes the Pokemon world more believable. I'm going to mostly rank them based on how much I prefer them over the original, but there are some exceptions. I'm also including new evolutions too, just so you know where they fall compared to the others. The Pokemon aren't ranked compared to all the other Pokemon in general. That means the Pokemon in A and S tier aren't necessarily A and S tier if they were to be ranked alongside all the other Pokemon that exist. D tier Pokemon though they're D tier in general. And we don't fully know the Galarian Slowpoke line's deal yet, so it's not here. I don't really like Alolan Persian and Meowth. I pretty much prefer everything about the originals over these two. I get what they're about and really like their concept, but the execution is terrible. C tier is okay, but I have no desire to use them. Zen mode Darmanitan is way better than the original. Again, I like the concept. It's actually very clever to have its reignited fire, like inner fire, melt the snow, but it looks goofy. Same with Galarian Rapidash. It's a B- as a Pokemon, but incredibly disappointing as a regional form. It's pretty, but the face is weird and I highly prefer Cantonian Rapidash. Alolan Golem and the rest of its family are fine, slightly above average. I'm not offended by them, I just slightly prefer the originals. I honestly love the concept of literally all regional forms, but this execution is mediocre. At least Galarian Dugtrio and Diglett are entertaining. I like them. They're definitely C+, and I only slightly prefer the originals. The origin is fascinating, but they're not an upgrade like a lot of the others. Alolan Rattata and Raticate aren't bad. They're honestly their own Pokemon in the back of my mind. As regional variants, they're pretty good, just not as cool as the originals. I like Berserker and Galarian Meowth more and more each day. They're practically B-, maybe higher in the future. More breeds of Meowth makes sense, just like how in the real world we have various breeds of cats. And I actually like the execution of Berserker. Its ties to Viking Berserkers is more masterfully illustrated than you may even know. But that's for an entirely different video. B tier time! These Pokemon are a mishmash of Pokemon I like more than the original, and some that I like just as much. Galarian Mr. Mime and Mr. Rime are definitely better than Mr. Mime in my opinion. I think a Pokemon that is designed to look creepy is better than a Pokemon that ends up being creepy by accident, and Mr. Rime is jolly and entertaining. It actually feels like a real character. Yamask is pretty much the same, only more interesting, so that deserves B tier, right? I actually like the original Stunfisk, and Galarian Stunfisk is even more insane. It builds on the existing trap lore and makes a clever change. What with the bear trap teeth and the animal tracks, it's exactly the kind of natural selection mimicry that would happen in the real world, so it's good. Galarian Darmanitan's line is also a very natural looking regional form. It makes sense that they would look like Yetis and Snowmen if they lived in the snow. Why was that so aggressive? I also think making Galarian Muck's line resemble rainbow oil slicks was a competent and witty move. As clever as a Honey Badger line Noon line with rock inspiration, Galarian Raichu is high up in B tier because I prefer it a noticeable amount more than regular Raichu. It's fun, cute, aesthetically pleasing, and very useful. Exactly the kind of rejuvenation this overshadowed Pokemon needs. A tier Pokemon I generally like more than the original by a noteworthy amount. Runerigus is a very cool take on Runestones, and it was a very smart idea to have it evolve from an existing Pokemon. It makes it more desirable and special. Alolan Sandslash's line is a great example of an amazing regional variant, in my opinion. It's completely different in type, and it adds another. That's what should happen. Sandshrew is so cute, and Sandslash is badass. Would love to use one day. Sirfetch'd is way better than Farfetch'd. The wait was worth it. It would be an S tier if its body was longer too. I love the concept of dead Coral Corsola. It was very ballsy and was executed with grace. Obstagoon made me exceptionally giddy when I first saw it. It blows my mind, honestly, on a personal level, but watch my Sword and Shield tier list to understand why. Galarian Weezing combines so many British industrial tropes and even subverts them, making it purify air and whatnot. Nothing is wrong with it. Galarian Farfetch'd is just an objectively better Farfetch'd in every way. Alolan Executor is one of my favorite memes, and I'm really glad it exists. It's so lighthearted and charming, and makes sense too. The regional variants that are obvious and make so much sense are my favorite, like Alolan Vulpix. An Arctic Fox is a famous example of real-world regional forms, so it was the perfect Pokemon to introduce us to the concept of Alolan forms. S tier are A+ tier Pokemon in general, but my absolute favorites in this category. Corsola is one of my favorite Galarian Pokemon, and a huge surprise. I love it way more than Corsola, and find it stunning. Same with Alolan Marowak. It's more beautiful than normal Marowak with green fire. It's epic. Galarian Ponyta infiltrated my list of Pokemon that I think are the cutest in the world as soon as I first laid eyes on it. It's objectively adorable. But Alolan Ninetales is in my opinion one of the most beautiful Pokemon ever. I already thought Ninetales was beautiful, but this thing is ethereal. It's mesmerizing in terms of design, and even more brilliant in terms of concept. They did good. They did good. And finally, Gigantamax Pokemon. People want to know my opinion on them, and of course, this is not based on competitive because I've never used them. Just based on concept, execution, how much I like them compared to their original state, and for some, how epic they look. In my opinion, they need to look imposing, stupefying. It needs to paralyze me with fear or beauty. In D rank, you have the only Gigantamax form I believe is a dud. G-Max Eevee is a downgrade from its original form, and I don't like the noise it makes upon Gigantamaxing. It's the most boring, with simply more floof around its neck. It has nothing to do with what Eevee's about. C rank is for forms that aren't better than the original form, but in no way offensive. G-Max Hatterene's hair just becomes bigger, and its body staying small and inhabiting a giant tentacle neck. It's cool, but it looks like the original, just more confusing. G-Max Melmetal has proportions I simply don't understand yet, and maybe I will in the future. G-Max Caparajah is epic, but not as lovable as the original. I'm a little biased since Caparajah is one of my favorite Galar Pokemon, and its G-Max form kinda strays from its original design a little too much. G-Max Turtleneck here isn't half bad. It's C+, B-, but it's not like there's anything inherently epic about it, other than the fact that it's standing now. G-Max Corviknight is actually better than the original, which is hard to do, but that's because it makes the least amount of changes, which brings it down a tier. B tier is those who range from a nice take on the Pokemon to slightly better than the original. Mega Venusaur is one of the few in this tier whose form isn't intuitive. By that I mean this form wasn't an obvious move, it's unexpected. It's still nice though, and definitely a bit scary, just not one of the coolest. I would've liked it if Appleton and Flapple had separate forms. This just looks more like Flapple, honestly. Other than that, it's good. G-Max Alchemy is neat. It makes sense and it's intimidating, just not the most natural looking for a creature to become a cake. Not a huge fan of the idea, but the execution is nice. G-Max Garbodor and Beyond are B+. This is what a G-Max Garbodor should look like. It was nicely implemented in the game and a nice surprise. G-Max Toxtricity is, in my opinion, slightly better than the original. I love the little electric guitar that it gets, and I like it better on all fours. Long Meowth is great. It gets extra points for being a meme, and it makes sense, so that's awesome. G-Max Butterfree is beautiful. I like it a lot. The colors are amazing. I like this Duraludon way more than the original in all aspects, but it's ranked slightly lower because it also doesn't look too natural. I get that it's supposed to look like the Shard, but why? Why is that? I may just be ignorant. Regardless, I love it. G-Max Lapras, though, is flawless. Almost like a Mega. G-Max Snorlax became the root that it sleeps on. That's perfect. And G-Max Pikachu can say P all day long. Fat Pikachu is always a win, and it was a good move by Game Freak. A is for the best, while S is for my personal favorites. I've grown to love G-Max Inteleon way more than I did when I first saw it. It's hilarious and logical. Exactly what I think we should have seen from him in the beginning, honestly. Cinderace's ego becoming a huge fireball with a face is compelling. It looks epic and I'm slowly falling in love with Cinderace. Rillaboom becoming an entire drum forest and drums with its hair. It's exactly what it should be. Way more fun and changes much more than a Mega does, like almost all of these. So by now I can tell that I prefer these over Megas, which I loved as well. I loved G-Max Blastoise as soon as I first saw it. An entire fortress and arsenal on this dude's back. I love those patterns too. Sandaconda is scary and way better than its normal state. This is what the Pokemon should have been too. G-Max Orbeetle really showcases what these forms are all about. In its monstrous form, it's exactly what people fear, and that's what I think the theme of Gigantamax should be. I love G-Max Colossal. I really wish this was his normal form. I've wanted a furnace Pokemon for ages. Now we're deep into A+. G-Max Grimmsnarl, looking like a titan about to battle kaijus. It's surreal. I would have thought this was Eternatus if you told me. G-Max Kingler is basically Mega Kingler. It's perfect. The beard bubbles make total sense considering crabs do make bubbles. They really do be doing that sometimes. G-Max Gengar is fun. It's so much fun. Very Gengar-like. I think it shows that Game Freak really understands the characters and the Pokemon that it has created. I'm actually a big fan of G-Max Charizard. It's the ideal Gigantamax Pokemon and A+. But my personal favorites are G-Max Machamp. People seem to think it's boring, but I think it has just the right amount of changes. If this was the Mega, people would absolutely love it. It looks like a colossal guardian from ancient times. It's incredible. And G-Max Centiskorch is beautiful. My favorite one to see. It's big and long and the only one that feels like an evolution. It coils up like a heat coil, then attacks, has bubbling fire inside of it as an animated texture, and looks like an Asian dragon, which makes sense to see as the ace of a man from Hoenn, like Kabu. Everything about it is perfect, just like you guys. So if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to check the description for the music I use, the t-shirts I made, my Patreon, or press the join button to become a member and get cool rewards like a discount on merch, the sweet Sceptile family icon near your name, and seeing my videos days early. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram too, and I'll see you guys very soon.